to the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line at 205-342-9904 and check in with my colleague there at BamaOnline.com. He was a busy guy from over the weekend, and that's Hank South. Does an outstanding job covering Alabama Crimson Tide recruiting. We figured, Hank, that you'd be busy over A-Day weekend getting reaction from visitors to Alabama's annual spring game. That didn't happen, but you still had a couple of commitments to break nonetheless.
Yeah, it was sort of a back-to-back A-Day with a different kind of A-Day, initial A-Day, Jai Hall, Anquan Barnes. We've been sitting here kind of waiting for things to get rolling for Alabama, and, I think had the dead period not be put in place, I think maybe we could have seen some more momentum coming out of March with all the visits in line, and then probably April as well. But things started to click on Friday. Anquan Barnes, three-star defensive tackle from Montgomery, Alabama, committed to the Tide over several a pretty heavyweight offer list that included Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee, some others. And then on Saturday, Jai Hall, who we've been talking about him for a while, trending to Alabama, but it just was a question of when was he actually going to announce. He had a commitment day set in January, then in March, he moved the March one to August, and then he decided last Friday he was going to announce this past Saturday. So he followed through and committed to Alabama over LSU, Georgia, Oklahoma, and some others. So it was a big weekend. We'll see if that momentum keeps rolling on as we, close out the month of April into May. But Bama jumped all the way to number 39 in the rankings. It's still not a spot you usually see Bama in, but if you go to the 24/7 Sports rankings right now, you no longer have to click load more to find where Bama ranks in the team ranking. So it was a positive weekend.
So you're saying Alabama has leapt over the likes of maybe Iowa State and some others to get to that first page now of those team rankings. No, but I know you had been on sort of commitment watch, maybe more so with Barnes than even Hall, who, as you outlined, had been trending towards Alabama for some time now.
Yeah. Barnes was, he's been on the list of, and I think Hall, we've had Hall on our next commit, whenever we do those stories a couple times a month of who could commit next. Hall's been on it before. It was just, because it really could have been at any time, and he proved that by committing on Saturday. But Barnes has been a guy, he got the offer on March 7th during his junior day visit to Alabama. He camped last summer, so Bama's seen him in camp already. He had a pretty solid junior season as well at Lee High School. Got the offer in March, and he wasn't really planning to announce until the summer, but you kind of just got that vibe from him that he was narrowing his list down. He had cut it down to 6. Once recruits kind of start narrowing it down to that top 6, top 5, or even fewer, you gotta have to think that they're getting pretty close, and especially in this climate when there's so much uncertainty about when guys are going to be able to visit, when things are going to start getting back going on the recruiting trail. Guys are going ahead and hopping on board and getting their spots. So Anquan Barnes did that on Friday, and a big weekend.
What is Alabama getting in Jai Hall? It looks like catch radius is among his attributes.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting size and speed. I think those are the two biggest things, when you turn on his tape and kind of watch what he's done the past few years. He has a verified 4.5 40. A lot of guys say they run a 4.5 or 4.4s, but then they actually get clocked on a laser time, and it's 4.6, 4.7 or slower. Jai Hall has a 4.5 40. He shows it on film. That's the biggest thing that jumps out to me. I was watching his tape again this morning. He catches the ball well in traffic. He can find those holes in the defense or in the secondary, and stretch the field. He can do a lot of different things. On the offensive side of the ball. So he's a big time receiver. Talking to our scouting guys on 24/7 who have ranked him, they think he might be the most. He's one of the most talented receivers in the class. He's rated as such, but he has probably one of the higher athletic ceilings of any prospect. So big time get in Jai Hall that I know Bama's happy with.
The number 63 overall prospect right now in the 24/7 Sports composite is Hall, and the nation's number 10 receiver prospect for the 2021 cycle. And that's a position, right, where there was a lot of emphasis already being placed, and not just with wide receiver, but tight end to go along with that. Are we talking about, if you combine those two positions for this class, Hank, are you talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 6-7 signees in all, potentially?
Yeah, I think so. I think, in the range of 3 to 4 receivers. I think that's kind of probably a safe guesstimate. And then, I would imagine Bama would like to take 2 tight ends if they can in the 2021 cycle. Obviously, they're not going to just take guys to fill up their number needs. They have to be the right guy. So, they're not going to, push themselves just to do it, just to get the numbers. But yeah, I think that's a good guesstimate as far as, what we'll see them finish with later this year or next February.
In terms of how this pandemic is impacting the evaluation process, we've already seen Ole Miss, for example, go ahead and state that summer camps are a wash. They're not going to happen at Ole Miss. Are you seeing or hearing anything where Alabama is concerned, where there's growing concern in that regard, and perhaps is that going to impact the green light maybe they give for some guys in terms of takes here in the near future?
Yeah, I'm sure there's concern. I don't think it's to the point where they're on the verge of canceling summer camp just yet. I think they're still kind of waiting this out a little bit. I saw Notre Dame canceled all their summer camps today earlier too, so that's another school that's in that boat of holding off. I'm not sure if that's more so they're clearing up the calendar to possibly have some sort of summer camp for the actual football team, so that the coaches aren't having to do twice the work. But I don't think there's. I'm sure there's concern. I don't think it's to the point where it's imminent that that's going to happen. That's going to affect a lot of things. Is it going to give guys that maybe Bama was on the fence about going ahead and accepting the commitment fund? Is it going to give them the green light just because there's not going to be an opportunity to work out in front of the staff? Is it going to be the staff focusing more on senior evaluations and possibly maybe there's a recruiting period where we see the staff able to go out on the road and fall camp for high school? It's going to be really interesting to see how this kind of unfolds and whether how impacted the summer camp season is.
Yeah, always a big time of year, no doubt, for staffs across the country as they try to finalize some evaluations. Talking with Hank South, recruiting analyst for BamaOnline.com on a Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports presented by Peterbrook Chocolatier. Hank, when you look at how this process is going to play out moving forward, it makes you wonder. We've seen in the past where sort of those off the radar to under the radar guys have had an opportunity to sort of validate themselves. You think this is going to hurt those kind of guys in this cycle? Is it going to have to be more of the guys that that programs like Alabama have already established a pretty good relationship with, that they're going to go ahead and pull the trigger with, or do you think there'll still be a window for some guys like Josh Jacobs from the past and some of those other type of prospects that weren't as high profile, I guess you could say, that came into the mix late?
Yeah, I think it might hurt some guys a little bit, but I still think, we're just going to see kind of an emphasis shift more towards evaluating them in whichever method they can. I still think there's going to be opportunities for that Josh Jacobs type recruit that we see every year. I mean, we saw Ennis Rakestraw this past season. I mean, he had hardly any offer or hardly any Power 5 offers entering his senior season, and then went out and locked down 3 or 4 of the best cornerbacks in the nation. Christian Barmore was committed to Temple entering his senior season. His film, stood out significantly to college staff. Alabama was able to get him on board in the early signing period. So there's still going to be opportunity for guys that maybe are lesser known or still have something to prove to college staff, I think, with their senior tape. But you got to think it's going to hurt a little bit just without the chance to camp. If there was some sort of, God forbid, an injury or something and a kid wasn't able to work out before his senior season and got hurt. I mean, there's different scenarios, but I think there's still going to be a chance for guys to be able to show what they can do.
Yeah, Hank, we saw here at the end of last week that the NCAA modified entrance requirements for class of 2020 high school grads, specifically no SAT, ACT aspect to the entrance requirements in the face of this pandemic. When you look at Alabama's 2020 class, are there any guys that are still trying to get there from an academic qualification perspective that this could perhaps help?
Yeah, I mean, the two guys who were watching that were already committed to Bama during the early signing period, but didn't sign as they continued to kind of get things shored up in the classroom were Javon Baker and Jameel Burroughs, both from McEachern High School in Georgia. Obviously, we saw Bama allow them both to sign, so that was clearly an indicator that they were on the right path toward, qualifying and being eligible to enroll this summer. And, I checked in on that after that ruling came out last week. Javon Baker, I was told he was good to go before that ruling. And then Jameel Burroughs, I believe his hurdle, his academic hurdle was the test score. So now with that out of the way, I don't see any issues with either of these guys, being good to go once they can enroll on campus.
Well, there you go. Hank South always does a great job for us there at BamaOnline.com. Be sure to check out all the great coverage there. And as always, Hank, we appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. Thanks, Travis.